go. So yeah, as you see here, the value and projection are kind of like the two main pillars to trying to get to the final evaluation of any particular prospect. And then what goes into value and projection. And for value, I wrote production, and yeah, I think what people will think is like statistical production, but it doesn't necessarily have to be statistical production. It could be just like more general, like on court value, but definitely you could add like different boxes. How I added in the projection part, a lot of boxes. I think they're
Yeah.
probably less in the value, but yeah, you could add like statistical. You could change the statistical production. You could change like current eye test evaluation or something like that. So you have like the value part of it is kind of like the descriptive, like the current what the prospect is like right now, and then the projection is kind of like the more kind of I guess vague or inexact parts of it that we're trying to, like the
Yeah.
prediction, fortune teller part of it, I guess. And I think the main thing for me is definitely age. So once you have the production and age, those two things on their own already, I think, cover a lot of what we go to final evaluation. And I think those two things we've done a fairly good job. There's some really good statistical models, especially when you like the NBA guys, they have some great models. And age is what I love about age is obviously everybody has like an exact age, and it's very, very much like there's a ton of studies out there for anybody. I think most people that listen to this know this, but just in case some of the listeners may still have some questions, like age is, as far as like this type of stuff goes, how inexact everything is compared to it. Age is like super valuable just because we have such a strong understanding that it correlates very much, like something like 85% or something like 80% of players reach their 2 year prime at like 26, 27, and then their 5 year prime between 23 or 24, I think, and 29, and the 10 year prime 23, 32. So you very consistently see the guys like rising of up to age, I don't know, 26, 27, and then a slow drop off into their 30s, and it gets quicker. So that having the age is extremely important because of how consistent it is. Like
Yeah.
everybody has a factual like age, and it's very correlative to their projection. And then after that, then you have things that are more like difficult to evaluate, like intel, like their personal stuff. That's an interesting topic in its own. And then like something like physical talent, like their tools, like how tall they are, um, how high they could jump, how fast they could run, and like their movement skills and stuff like that. So that, and then maybe there's other things that I'm not currently exactly thinking of, but I'm sure we could all, if we sat down and as we
Yeah.
do this podcast in the future, we'll think of other things that we would add here. But yeah, and so that all comes into the final kind of evaluation. So this is like kind of
Yeah.
my basic like understanding, like broad framework, quote unquote, for scouting players, but like figuring out like the more exact parts of this is kind of my purpose within this podcast. So yeah, sorry for this long rant.
Yeah. One question I had was for age, right? Is it more like exact age, or are there like exceptions? Like for example, we had like Pascal Siakam. He was pretty old, but he was a sophomore. So how do you treat that? Is it
Yeah,
exact
you're
or more
are you talking about
experience?
like age versus experience? Yeah, I think age is
Yeah,
far more important than experience. There is
really.
some like yeah, by far it's not even close. But there is some value that comes from experience, and depends on who you ask. I'm less kind of a proponent of experience in general, but some people that I think are worthy, like they have a, they're not just talking out their ass, like they know what they're talking about, will tell you that like experience, I think none of them would say it matters as much as age, but would say that it's still like in certain examples at least it's quite important. Like if a player started playing organized basketball at like
Yeah,
age 16 or something, like certain examples like
yeah,
that, experience could come at least close to age or something like that, which I honestly I'd still disagree personally, but there's definitely arguments for it, and it's there's not conclusive evidence either way. We haven't had like a lot of studies. I don't think there's enough examples of that, to be honest,
yeah.
to
That's
really
true.
make a great fact finding type study on it. But yeah, I think but in most, like for the most top prospects, they've been playing basketball for quite a while, and the fact that one of them is a freshman and the other junior in college, if the junior is younger, I think the junior has a better H kind of score, even if even if the freshman hasn't had those 2 years of college experience yet, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think I'm a little less age focused. I think that uh, like the stuff you said about not playing basketball early, like Joel Embiid's like a really good example of that. Like he had all of these, he was like very young, very productive, but like on top of that, like he started playing basketball when he was like 15. So like if you like take that, and I think taking that into effect is actually very important. Like that skill development curve, like going from 15 to like 18 and going from like never playing basketball to being like an all-American or like top three pick. I think that valuing that more, so valuing him more relative to other people his age, I think that is like pretty important. Or like Chris Boucher, Pascal Siakam, those are all like guys who were drafted relatively late but didn't have like the same level of experience.
Yeah.
So I think that guys who didn't play basketball as much growing up, or maybe like they experienced like a growth spurt or something, like Trey Murphy, like he was like 6'1" when he started college and then he became like 6'9", like stuff like that. I think taking into consideration like how they've developed is also important. So it's like kind of like a corollary to like specifically like age specific stuff. But generally speaking, I do agree with you. Like age is probably the prime like factor that you look to consider like how projection evolves.
Well, what's it called? Yeah. The Trey Murphy example is like more like physical talent, I would say, in my case. But yeah,
Yeah.
you could maybe do like a separate category where you would talk about um like guys specifically, like you said, that are in like the middle of a growth spurt and like adjusting to their new physical stature or whatever. But as far as experience, I have done personal like study where I compared players by age versus
Mhm.
experience, and like their the age related like graph was all like very straight, and the experience one was like all over the place. And the only what like correlations you found with how they developed is because guys generally start at the same age. So it was like basically just, yeah, it showed the same thing that like, yeah, most guys enter the NBA at 21 or 22, and yeah, they slowly get better and improve and then slowly get worse. And it's which is along the age curve. But like the year
Exactly.
they
Yeah.
left, like if they left at 20 or 21 or 22 and they got more experience or less experience, how many years of experience they played in the NBA had almost no correlation with like their like career arc, like the arc of improvement and decline. So yeah, there's not a lot of, but yeah, as far as like the guys that didn't have a lot of experience that started playing
Yeah.
basketball, organized basketball, we could definitely talk about that more in the future. But I would say,
Mhm.
in my opinion, I think there's a lot of like survivor bias in that, because there's definitely examples of guys that like started playing basketball late at like 16 and whatever, and then they kind of just always sucked and didn't do anything.
Yeah.
Because we remember like the Embiids and the Siakams, but I'm sure we could find quite a few examples of guys that didn't have this crazy improvement arc. And to be clear, obviously I'm not saying that everybody has exactly the same career
Yeah.
arc. Everybody improves exactly 0.05 of value over replacement every year until 24, and then they improve exactly point. Obviously it's all over the place. Guys get worse sometimes, even as when they're younger, and then they'll get back up. That's another interesting topic, where guys sometimes, if a younger guy stagnates for a year, that doesn't mean that they're now stagnating. If they're still like 20, 21, they're likely going to get back on that career arc, even if they stagnate for a year in a lot of cases,
Do you
is
have
what
any
I've found.
examples of those players?
Sure. Yeah, like Jimmy Butler, Chris
Oh
Middleton, they
yeah,
ha-
yeah.
they
Chris
they played
Middleton's
worse
good.
in
Yeah.
their senior year than their junior year, and
Yeah.
in college. Yeah, like guys like that. There's quite a few. Evan Mobley had a kind of poor high school senior year and stagnated, quote unquote. So yeah, that even in those examples, the age kind of overrides the not experience, but like their kind of improvement arc, age. So I think age is very, very important in as
Yeah.
far as in the projection part. But there's definitely